Truth Talks. Please, I'm excited about the Truth Talks. They are addressing true fellowship and what it means, what true fellowship and corporate worship looks like according to the Bible.
I will sing to the old rugged cross, and exchange it someday for a crown.
All right, we're back. Fun times. Fun times. I'll sit up here and tell a tall tale that I ain't steady today, but we all know that everybody probably dug in a little bit sometime over the time that's passed. And we pick right back up on Israel, their king. And last one we left, Saul was doing what? Was he in a good shape or bad shape? Bad shape. Well, I mean, so we see Samuel make a decree right here. Samuel tells him he's taking the anointing from you. That's the last thing, he told him. And then afterwards, we saw that him and his son and the rest of Israel, they went to fight the Philistines. And when they were running towards the Philistines, only 2 people had weapons in their hands. Very, very, very significant stuff that's happening. I mean, it seems like it's small, but as we all know here, everything in Scripture has its value. All right. We see that we have a king that chooses weapons to defend himself and not the Lord God. I say that for a reason, right? Because we're going to see a transition in the kingdom of Israel, a huge transition. And some of these things that we looked at in the past, from the judges to the king, we're going to see a new change, even further change happening is getting ready to take place in Israel. Now, remember, Israel is still a nation that has came into their land. They've had judges. The years have passed. We looking at maybe about 400 something years, maybe a little more, somewhere around there, because you got to think some of the judges held seats for 70 years and Samuel had time. So we got a nice little gap of time, but we still seeing a fresh new land to where they're at. So we know that they're establishing themselves in this land. The establishment is coming along with the change from a power, well, not change of power, because we know that no power really changes, but we've seen it go from the judges to the kings. And we've seen a king, how easy it was for a king to bow his ear to his people. And then from there, we see that God is like, well, this isn't the one. But he knew that. None of this that is happening, you would say, well, God made a mistake. He does say that I wish I never would have done it, but it wasn't a mistake. He never says a mistake. Just say, I wish I wouldn't have picked him as king. These are lessons for us. God knows what he's trying to teach us in these scriptures. So if Saul was the king to be all kings, we would hear the end, salvation forever, right? That would be the story. His line would have continued on. It would be on the throne, like you said, forever. And we know but we know that's not how the story goes. So we can sit up here and hypotheticalize all day long, but the truth is in the scriptures. So we know that Saul himself is getting ready to be unseated. But in the process, Saul is still ruling Israel. He's still doing what it needs to progress Israel forward. Progressing Israel forward means they still have to fight the Philistines, because the Philistines are still around them. So it's a continuation. All the Israelites, they're in caves right now. They're hiding, except for a few. And that few is with Saul. And Saul got his men, and he's sitting under a tree. And while he's sitting under a tree, his son says, oh, this seems like a day that I want to go and be the man. And he has somebody with him, right? And his armor bearer tells him what?
Where thee go, I go.
Where you going? I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
And him and that armor bearer, they came together and they went out. And this is the thing that, when we hear the story and this transitioning from Saul, we still see the faithfulness of the people, but we also still see the era of what they're doing. Now, first of all, who told Jonathan to go up there to the Philistine camp? Because remember, Israel's in disarray.
Mm-hmm.
Saul has just now lost his anointing. So he's recuperating his mental state. He's somewhere under a tree. Everybody's hiding. And the first thing that Jonathan decides is, I think we could take that outpost.
This is in chapter 14, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
If I'm moving too fast, let me know. I'll take it back. We'll take a step back. So I wanted to point out Ananiah, son of Ahatub, Ichabod's brother, son of Phinehas, son of Eli, the priest of Shiloh, wearing the shoulder garments, and the people did not know that Jonathan had gone. Right, that's chapter
verse 3.
Verse 3. I'm sorry.
Verse 3.
I went back. I point
14:3.
that out because I wanted to let know that
14.
even though all of Eli's line has been taken from the house of from the temple, but it wasn't a complete wipe out of his line. As we see, there's still other people there. So a lot of times that's taught as it's complete annihilation, but it's completely removed from the office of a judge. Because remember, Eli was a judge. He was there to make a decision. Just like Saul has his kingdom removed, Eli had his. But in the process of hearing all the news, he died. His sons died and the baby died. But there was still relatives left. All right. And guess who they sided with in the process? Went off. He still needs a priest, right? So he has one. So Jonathan's passed. If you go down to 14:11, and it talks about, well, before that, it talks about how they were going to devise a plan. And they put it in God's hand. They said, if we go up there and they tell us to come to them, then we know that the God has put them in their hands. But if we go up there and they don't, and they come to us, then we know the opposite, right? Now, I want to tell you an outpost. An outpost, a lot of people may picture it as this large tower. Their outposts were basically, they would set up in their land. They would put about 20, 30 people in the fields where they were at. So when passing through their land, it was like a checkpoint. Well, if you're passing by yourself, you're not going to overrun 20 or 30 people. Not by yourself. And you're definitely not going to do it with an armor bearer. Or will you? Right. So we know that Jonathan comes up, and when Jonathan walks up to him, they say, hey, the Israelites, the Hebrews, have decided to come out of their holes. So we see the arrogance of the Philistines. And when they tell them that they decided to come out of their hole, Jonathan's like, oh, we got him. We got him. This is it. So Jonathan's approaching. And when he approaches them, he slaughters them. This outpost of 20 plus men, he slaughtered them in the field, and they're just being obliterated. There's armor bearers just coming behind them, picking up the scraps. Oh, you still alive? Poke. You still alive? Slash. And they clear out the whole field. Now, when they start this what happens with the rest of the Hebrews?
They're getting bolder.
They're getting bold. You know, and we see that defiance of going against his dad is kind of, going against his dad is almost hereditary. The disobedience, or was it disobedience? Did his dad tell him not to go up there? We really don't see it. But I think Jonathan going off on his own, and the king sitting under a tree, you can also see the shift of, or the crack in the foundation of what Saul had already established, and it's coming from his own house. So he gets up there and he brings the victory. And I say you see the crack because after he brings the victory, he comes down. And Saul puts the whole nation of Israel under an oath. Right? He tells them, don't eat. After a battle like this, to where they've been pretty much beat up prior to this fight. Then after this fight, they get in and they get a little bit more battle torn and worn. And now they're being told they can't eat. Like, what kind of king is telling his people after a victory that you can't take part of the spoils? Any comment on it? Any thoughts on it?
You deny them physical stability, you know. And you wanted them to fight Danny.
In other words, he was saying, no food until after victory, until after I say so.
All right.
Okay.
Think about the strength that they need. That's why they have to eat in order to have the strength.
And not only that, the battle was it was a lot going on during that battle. And I'm backtracking here. There was a whole lot going on where it was getting so much confusion that even the Hebrews that had decided that they didn't want to go over there, or they were already with the Philistines, they turned and was like, hey, yo, wait, we got a chance to win. So they started more of like an uprising, a revolt inside internally, which caused this confusion. Now the fight is going out of control. They won, and he's telling them, after all this, not only did we win, we now have more mouths to feed than we did before the fight even started. And I put a decree, an oath, that no one eats. Now, why did he say he did it? Did he give a reason?
Who was it at?
Why did Saul give an oath to the people and tell them not to eat?
I don't think it did,
It didn't. So this was just the fact that we are starting to see, because he's a king, he can say stuff just like this.
Just like God told them in advance what their king would do. If the king that they said they wanted, and God said, no, I'm your king. And he gave them that description through the prophet of everything the king would do. And one would be make decisions like this.
Make decisions. The king say don't eat. You know, he didn't have to give a reason. Saul understands now that he is the king of Israel. Whether he's the anointed king of Israel or the king of Israel, they still are listening to him. They're still following, except his own son. Because Jonathan told when they go ahead.
You give me say except his own son. What his son didn't hear his father pass the decree anyway.
Right? Because he was go ahead.
Once they went through that pass, and it's important to understand they went through a pass because they only had 2 weapons, right? And the rest of them had plowshares and all that. They had sharpened because they left them files to sharpen with, because the Palestinians took all the weapons. Okay, so went through in the pass, and then he climbed up, and they started doing what they're doing. He basically had done the victory. Okay, right. He had done the victory, which means now, you know, he had not heard the oath or the oath that they were sworn by. And so when you see this happening, because you have a lot of people, they fought a long time. They fought a whole bunch of battles. Without this, they fought a long time, and they were tired. And like you said, they needed to be what? Nourished. They need to be stable. And so they were tired. And when they were tired, right, they still could not do what they wanted to do, was what? To eat that honey that was on that ground all over the place.
And when Jonathan came, the first thing they told Jonathan was, your dad said don't eat it.
Too late, I done ate
And
it.
his reply was, my father troubles the land.
Yes.
So he had already started to know something. You know, I wanted to be in a mindset that a king in those times kept their sons really close. Really, really close. Because keeping your son close means you was teaching your son kinglyship. You were teaching him all the things that he needed to know. So once he did it, he heard the oath. He knew what was the ramifications of it, but he also knew that his dad
Was trouble.
was troubled. He wasn't helping their cause. He troubled the lands. The lands not meaning he was souring the land meaning the people. Once again, you hear a lot of terms where you say, where we hear world or other terms. We're talking about, yes, the land physically, but also the people on the land. They were not allowed to do what they needed to do for Israel to grow as a nation. And Saul was stopping them. Nourishment for the men of battle was troubling the land. It wouldn't allow them to do what they needed to do.
And see what Johnson said in verse 29. You said Johnson said, now remember that he has already dipped his pit or spirit, whatever, and he already tasted his light, his eyes lighted up, right? He felt energy come. But it said verse 29, but Johnson said, my father has troubled the land. Look now how my contemporary countenance had brightened because I tasted a little of this honey. How much better if the people had eaten freely today of the spoils of their enemies, which they found, for not now would there not have been a much greater slaughter among the Philistines? The energy.
Yep. And what he's saying is this: if we would have went up here and did what we wanted to do. Now, once again, by no means am I advocating saying that Jonathan is right. Jonathan disobeyed an oath, but he's also pointing out valuable things that are happening in the kingdom of Israel. Because look what happens next when Jonathan says, well, I've tasted the honey. With people who don't understand and you give them same opportunities, well, somebody once told me, you give a man a rope, he's going to think he's a cowboy. So the land of Israel thought they were cowboys. They went, they got the slaughter. They got all the things that they value, and they cut it and they ate it.
With blood in it. That's the
With
key.
they cut it and ate it with
It-
blood.
deep.
Now, when they were eating it, who's to say that maybe Saul would have had some compassion? We don't know. We don't sit here and say, well, hypothetically, he might have had compassion. We don't know. But we do know that they ate of it. And when they ate it with the blood. So not only are they breaking an oath, they're also breaking a law. This was a law in Israel. Do not eat the food with the blood, for the blood has the life in it.
You know, the thing about that is, the honey was from an earthly king that he told him not to eat, but the King of Kings had gave them the law not to eat animals with blood.
Blood, yes.
And they disobeyed that.
Mm-hmm. And see, and when you look at that point that you bringing out here, it's then they see, and it was funny is in 33 it said, then they told Saul saying, look, the people are sinning against the Lord by eating what with the blood.
Blood.
So
Now-
go ahead.
So a lot of this came about because Saul was sitting there and Saul was still under the tree, determining if can I get victory?
Victory.
Can I get victory against these Philistines? Now, Jonathan's already this is why I say when we read the scripture, we got to think, always stack it. Try your best to stack the timelines as of reading it like a linear book. Because all of this, while Saul was under the tree, was happening. So can you imagine a whole battle taking place? All these things, and Saul is under the tree consulting God and not hearing anything. And he's wondering why. Like, man, is it because Samuel came and told me I wasn't going to be anointed? I'm just not hearing it. And then that's when they came and told him about them eating with blood. And then Saul said, well, I got to do something. I made an oath and I am the king. And they said, whoever this man is, even if it's my son, we're going to chop him down. We're going to cut him up because that's what I said. Well, it's your son. Just so happened your son was the one that broke the oath. Now, mind you, that everything that had transpired, not Israel, but the son. But once he heard that, he said, well, no, we must cast a perfect lot. And he put Israel in the pot, he put himself in the pot, and he put Jonathan in the pot, because guess what? They all were wrong. Now, the thing about casting lots that when I looked into it, this was the way that they believed. It was the most purest and honest way to leave it up to God. We've seen it in the book of Leviticus when they say cast perfect lots to decide which lamb is going to be one slaughter to God, which is going to be. We've seen it, here in this situation. We've seen lots cast several times. We even seen lots cast because it was prophesied that it would be done later on in the scriptures. But there were several ways that they cast these lots. They did dyes, they did wheat, and it does. I think which way they say they did it here. Was it with the straw? Because it seemed like a straw method. They pulled out one and they had two remaining. With the two that was remaining was Jonathan and Samuel. Saul.
I can't remember.
I don't think they really say, but the method seems like it's a straw method because the dice method normally eliminates more people. But since you had such a less, but I just wanted to point out that lots was the way that they made a perfect decision. Now, I've been playing this game called Farkle. It's an old game, but it's simple. 6 dice, you roll them, and me and my wife have been playing. We've been playing just to see, for a date night. Whoever wins the most games get a date night. And I came to the realization that no matter how much I tried to win, it was destined for her to win because I've tried to roll the dice that way. I tried to roll the dice this way. I tried to throw the dice up, let them up, and she still won. So when we hear lots, it really is left up to God. It's one of the ways the scriptures have said. This is how we figure out who's going to be who, because it's left up to God. Now, I'm not saying that the dice game that we was playing, but I'm just giving you an example of how this is how they made their decisions when it came to things like this. Now, we know that that's not how you make the decision. Patience, waiting on the Lord is how you get your answer. Not saying, well, you know what? Let me cast lots to figure out what my fate is. Because who told them to cast lots when they were determining the goat and the lamb? Who gave them that instruction? God gave them that instruction. That for the Levitical rite, for when they would send one out to the wilderness and keep one That was God's decision. You will cast lots to determine which one it was. So God telling you cast lots, that's him telling you let that make a decision, showing you his way. But you sitting around saying you want to cast lots, I don't think that's the same.
You also had the Urim and the Thummim also, however they did that they wore in the breastplate, the Urim and the Thummim, they used that to make decisions. The Bible didn't say how exactly they did that.
Go ahead, please.
There isn't a better leader than the Lord Jesus Christ. Not at all, right? He is the perfect model of how to lead. In fact, the scriptures say the Son of Man came to serve, not to be served, right? So he's showing us the true definition of a God-sent leader is he will always put God first and the people next, like after themselves, right? I think part of this thing with Saul too, just like Saul had an issue, he was kind of jealous with David. You know, he was kind of, Jonathan came and struck a mighty blow. We know God did it through Jonathan, but he struck a mighty blow. And I think part of Saul's challenge was he wanted to take their mind. You said it yourself, he wanted to conquer the people. The scriptures clearly say that every battle that they won, he doesn't leave it out. He says the Lord delivered them. The Lord did this. He may give us the players. He may say which leader it was or whatever the case may be. But it says right here I'll just look at this. It says in 14:45, but the people said to Saul, must Jonathan die, who has brought about this great deliverance in Israel? Far from it, as the Lord lives, not one hair of his head shall fall to the ground, for he has worked with God this day. I think in that passage, the people do understand that God is the one that's done the deliverance, not Jonathan, so to speak. But I think Saul's like, don't eat. Because now your mind is going to be on being without and being hunger and not focused on what Jonathan had just done. So I just think there's some prophecy behind Saul being more about himself in certain situations than he is about the people. And I wanted to bring that out.
No, and once again, I'm not, don't, just like David said, he's still one of the anointed.
Right.
All right.
We're not gonna give him right.
So let's not be too hard on Saul because Saul has his purpose in the scriptures. Go ahead.
We don't have to be hard on Saul. Samuel was hard on Saul because God told him to tell him certain things.
Right.
Okay. And when he did not do what he thought was better or to get things done, he got in trouble.
Very much so.
Saul did. Samuel had to beat him down.
And BJ, make it even more about this, it's really not about Saul, it's about what God told the people that a king, whatever his name was, any focus other than me, if you want a king, this is what this king will be about. So we know God was still using Saul, but I'm saying it wasn't really about Saul, Petedy. It's about this king that the people said they wanted out of disobedience. God told them up front through the prophet what this king would be like. Yeah, Saul's just walking that out.
Okay.
And see, when you choose a king by appearance, outward appearance, then this you get also.
Well, and
yeah, he does.
He was with his people. He was with Saul, even though he gave them a king. You know, God just wanted them to recognize, even though I give you what you wanted. I'm still your king.
Yes.
He had never relinquished that.
No.
And so everything is still going. God is not
still
having
going
to
with
change
God's
his
plan,
plan in this sense. God is not having to remove from being a king now since Saul the king. God is still the same king he was before Saul became a king. They're talking about the people disobeying the king and how Saul the king and the people will be punished, you know. What he's saying is, I'm giving you your king,
Mhm.
but it still doesn't relinquish you from disobeying me.
Right.
And so he never had to change his plan because he gave them a king.
So think of it like this. And you know, when I think about Saul, and I think about how God dealt with Israel, giving them their king. What they thought they were getting was just an extra step in getting what they already had. In other words, God said, y'all want a king? Here you go. You had just to listen to me, but now you have to listen to him
And me.
and me. And this is the thing. Whatever he says, you have to do it. If it's not right in my eyes, I'll erase him, put another king, because you asked for this. Because if you notice, he could have just said, Saul, you know what? We're going to go back to the way things was. No, you asked for this. Therefore, the plan, once again, we know God's plan.
You didn't have to
Yeah,
go.
you didn't have to, because this is the thing. Who said we needed that king for God to make a king for eternity? No, it's for us to learn from. That's why I say don't be so hard on Saul, because Samuel is gonna say something. He's gonna say something that should radiate with all of us, not just Saul. And I say that's why I say don't be so hard on Saul, because I had to put I had to put my feet in those shoes. Maybe not the kingly manner, but I had to think about it while reading. And I was getting, you know, to the point where it's saying, Saul, 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 you shouldn't. And the whole time I was sitting there, it was like, Jesus was like, hey, so you bold enough to tell a king what he shouldn't have, but what about you? And I'm like, my bad.
Now, didn't
My fault.
Didn't
Sorry
you
about
say
that.
that Saul eventually was looking out more for himself later on than he was for the people?
That's true. I say,
Also, God anointed Saul, but Saul disobeyed God. And the people wanting to have a king, they had to be loyal to the king, to Saul. So Saul had the ability to lead some of the people away from God. Influence, so he can't lead them away from God, but influence them.
disobedience.
So, you know, that was played out too.
We've been seeing disobedience since I believe chapter 7 of Genesis.
No, chapter 3.
3. But even
Chapter
I was
3.
trying to give him chapter
You get
3.
a benefit of
We've
doubt.
been seeing disobedience. So this is a continued pattern. Whether it's the king, whether it's the people, this is showing God's patience and how he deals with his people. Simple stuff. You ask God, he'll give it to you. You want it, you pray hard enough for it, I'll give it to you. You're going to see that when I gave it to you, I had something better for you. So we see that with the nation of Israel. We see it progressing forward. And once again, I can't sit here and be hard on the nation of Israel, because once again, I can go broad, but then it comes down to the individual. Who am I? Who am I? I'm just here to share it like we are. All right. So now we see Saul, and we see Saul. He tells them, I'm not going to kill Jonathan. You know, I'm not going to do it. You know, for lack of better terms. And we if you want to,
He killed John.
huh?
Why didn't he?
Because the people. Well,
Go.
so the people themselves, Saul didn't kill Jonathan because the people themselves said, Jonathan has brought salvation to Israel. How could you kill Jonathan? We won this day, just like Pastor Amari just said. He just said it.
Yeah, verse 45.
Yeah, he said he brought salvation. It says in verse 40. Well, verse 40. I'll read 45. I'll read 40. Chapter 14, 45. But the people said to Saul, should Jonathan die, who has wrought this great salvation in Israel, who has brought it? Far be it, as God lives, let not one hair of his head fall to the ground, for he has wrought with God this day. Thus the people ransomed Jonathan, and he did not die. Once again, we see Saul say one thing, an oath, a decree, and he has to turn right around and adhere to the people again to not even uphold an oath that he put in place. Yeah, to break his own decree. That's bad business.
Because it was his decree that Jonathan would die. And he broke this decree. Now, what we talk about in Judges, how God never intended for the judges to deliver them from their greater problem.
Right.
Which was saying, Okay, now he gives them a king,
Mhm.
never intended to deliver them from their greater problems. What you're saying. Now, the king said, whoever did this, his son would die. But it became inflexible because of the people's choice.
And I look at it like this too. Once again, the way my mind works. When they cast the perfect lot, who was supposed to die? Who was the ones that were definitely supposed to die? You're right. The people. So that perfect lot that they cast, God blessed the people, even in that, because they should have died. The only person they was focused on was the honey. So even the people who was trying to save the person that they were already saved because they should have died. Remember, they broke the law of Moses. To eat with blood, you take that person outside of the city and stone them to death. Didn't say that happened anywhere.
I heard me say before, if they broke the law, like you just said, the law was a ministry of death. I mean, if you broke one part of the law, you broke the whole law. That's how it was a ministry of death, because the law brought death. You know, you break the law, you should die. And so therefore, God still extended mercy to them.
They did not die.
But now God extended mercy to them for his glory, because he had promised his son a people, a nation. And so from just looking at the scripture, it still like he did it for them. But remember, that son is lesson, you know, it was a chosen nation.
Yes.
There was his nation for his glory.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not primarily for them that he saved them. It's for himself that he saved them. They just benefactors. Because God plan didn't change for the nation Israel.
I hate to back up on you a little bit here.
No, please.
But go to verse 39, and I want you to follow this down. What he's saying, it says, "For as the Lord lives, who saved Israel, though it be Jonathan my son, he shall surely die." And it's Saul saying he should surely die, right? That's what you're saying, right, Ken? Because he said that, right? But not a man among the people answered him. They kept their mouth shut, did they not? Okay. Then he said to all Israel, "You be on one side, and my son Jonathan and I will be on the other." That's where they it cast a lot between the two of them. He took the people out of it. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, that's because of the division.
Right.
So the division, Saul had to say this. Y'all won't tell me who did it. You won't tell me who did it. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make me and Jonathan over here, and y'all over there. And until somebody on that side, it's the king. Because I'm not gonna kill my son. I'm not gonna kill my son.
He ain't got that part yet.
That's what I'm saying.
He ain't got that part yet.
This is how it is. The division.
He said,
Who did it? Who did it? Israel. We ain't telling you. Okay. So since you're against me and my son is going to stand here. We're going to stand here and we're going to look at Israel and say, until somebody do it. And that's when he found out. It was Jonathan. Oh no, we got to cast lots. We got to cast lots now because Jonathan is in the mix. If it was anybody else when he put Israel on that side, it wouldn't have been no lots cast.
That's what I was getting at. When the king passed judgment, when the king
"Pass judgment." Yes.
it's inflexible, even if it's on his son. It's
Mhm.
because the sin was put on the son.
Right.
And the king of kings didn't change because it was his son. And see, the rules changed when it's Saul's son. And see, this is what I'm saying. He said, I'm still your king, even though I give you a king, because your king he's not like me, he's different. His judgment is different from mine. Because even when sin was on Jonathan, now Saul want to change the rules. But God didn't change the rules when the sin was on Saul.
But look,
I'm just,
No, that is
I
it.
understand what you're saying. And you follow Saul as he goes in verse 44. It says, Saul answered, "God do so and more also, for you shall surely die, Jonathan." Now, what Jonathan said, "Why should I die for this?" Right? But also he's saying Saul saying you should surely die, right? Now it comes back, as you said that, it comes back to the people. And the people said to Saul, should Jonathan die, who has accomplished the great, what? Deliverance of Israel, what you read? Certainly not. We're done with that.
So we see Saul as a king, an earthly king. You see him go back and forth on his decisions. We see this. we see that these are the decisions. He's not, when they had God, and they still got God on, but when Israel viewed themselves as just God, no king, the decision was absolute. Leaving Egypt, absolute. Going in the wilderness, absolute. That absolute. People who disobeyed, they died. They were left behind. They were left in the wilderness. We saw that over throughout the scriptures. When God says we're moving forward, if you say I'll stay, then you wiped out. I don't need you anymore. Now we're gonna keep going forward. Now I say wiped out because that is a tough word, but I like to use wiped out because next is what is exactly what God says. Utterly destroy the Amalekites, the Amalekites.
Amalekites.
Now, I've always asked myself when I was reading this, what did he do that was so bad? Anybody know what this king did? No, we ain't got to Saul yet. Samuel came. We're in 15:1. Samuel come to Saul and he's like, hey.
This goes way back.
I got you. I got them all covered. But anybody else remember exactly what was done?
No,
the Amalekites.
The Amalekites.
Why did God want to destroy these people?
Right.
When you it was about what this king did.
It was the people.
If you go back to when when they were leading the nation of Israel.
I got you.
The Amalekites, they stopped them. They wouldn't let them come through there.
All right, go to Exodus 17, 18. 17, 8 through 13.
Who the heck called on Exodus? Yeah. 17, 18. Doing the Exodus.
Go to Exodus. We
17, 18. You said 17, 18, right?
Yep. So 17, 8 through 13.
This speaks to the point of you talking about always stacking things on top of things. Let's not forget things when we progress through the scriptures.
Because it has a purpose.
Right.
It has a reason when God tells them to do something, or when he's trying to get these people out of the way.
Punishment. Go ahead.
So initially, anybody there? You want to read it? All right.
I'll read it. Unless you just want to.
No, go ahead.
You want me to start at verse number 8?
8 to 13. It's really quick.
Okay. Then Amalek came and fought against Israel at Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, choose men for us and go out, fight against Amalek. Tomorrow, I will station myself on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand.
Time to go up. They went. Time to go down.
Joshua did as Moses told him and fought against Amalek, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. So it came about when Moses held his hand up that Israel prevailed. Yeah. And when he left his hand down, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy. That's all of them. Then they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it, and Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and one on the other. Thus his hands were steady until the sunset.
And who won?
So Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, write this in a book as a memorial and recite it to Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven.
Now let's go. I'll take some of it from here. Deuteronomy 25, 17 through 19. Remember Amalek? How he did you on the way of coming out of Egypt? 25, 17 through 19. Remember what Amalek did to you on the way out of Egypt? And how he met you.
You might have forgot about that, but
yeah.
I didn't forget about that.
So this once again, this Deuteronomy. Now they in the land, they getting everything, and he's still reminding them. But wait, if you go to Numbers 14:45.
Now you need
Numbers. Because they haven't gotten rid of him, remember? Numbers. Because huh?
Did you want me to read Deuteronomy 17?
No.
Said
We good. No, we good. We on Numbers 14:45.
Right, okay.
Lived in that hill country, came down and struck them.
He went back.
Them down as far as almonds.
So not only them, they are recruiting other people.
Yes.
Let's-
to come against God's people.
Now let's go. Let's go to Judges 3,
Which verse you just read, Al?
3:13. Judges 3:13. And I'm showing you this because I'm gonna show you something else after we finish talking about Saul.
Judges 3:13.
I'm sorry if I'm moving too fast. Let me slow down. I just get it like I get excited. I get excited because it's such
3:13, right?
3:13. Because we
Okay.
go 3:13.
Okay, 3:13 says, not in my book. Okay, then you read there? Okay. Then he gathered to himself the people of Ammon and Amalek and went and defeated Israel and took possession of the city of palms.
We're not done yet. Because if you go to 6:3, he's still siding with the Midians, and he would come up against the people of Israel from the east, and he would encamp against them and destroy and basically made famine in Israel. They left them with no food. So we see that this king or these people have always been
A thorn in his
a
side.
thorn in the side of Israel. So God is like, okay, I've got everything settled. Utter annihilation. I didn't forget. Because we do know that our God, what does it say? Without prejudice.
Mhm.
He's going to avenge his enemies. I mean, he's going to get revenge. He's going to get revenge on his enemies, those that has messed with his children.
And now some of this we read now, it was God moving upon the heart of the Amalekites.
You had to
Right.
go back. One
Right.
verse it said, God moved, he strengthened the hand. Yeah.
Right.
He strengthened their hands. So yeah, even though he did it, though, they're still gonna pay. It's like the ones who crucified Jesus.
They gonna still pay.
They're still gonna pay.
Crime.
In other words, God was using them to punish.
But yeah, in other
to
words,
punish
it was a
Israel.
crime and a victory from one side, but it was the bad side going on at the
Right.
same time.
It had its reasons.
Right.
But I wanted to point out how these particular people have been basically a thorn. Now,
Used by God and a thorn at the same time.
so as it's not so much the fighting. The fighting is what really sent it home. These are violent people. But what it was they went after Israel when they were basically in a weakened state. How dare God's like, how dare you come after me? Not only are you going to come after my children, you're going to come after them when they have no means to defend themselves. They're escaping from Egypt, got Egypt on their back, and you're going to be the first one at the door knocking them down. Okay, don't think I'm going to forget.
And like I said, remember that and all this, God brought them on their back in some cases.
Yes.
No, I mean, no matter, but we see both sides. We see both sides. But right now we're talking about the Amalekites. Their past transgression. We can talk about Israel if we bring it up throughout the book, why they were getting them lashings. But right now, God is saying, go deal with the Amalekites. And he's telling them. And Saul's like, well, got it. Because remember what he's saying. The first thing he tells Saul in there is he tells Saul, Samuel said to Saul, God sent me to anoint you over his people, over Israel. And now listen to the voice of God. Samuel is giving Saul another go at it. Give him another go at it. Saul got another opportunity. All he has to do is go down there and do exactly what he was told. Go to the Amalekites and destroy them utterly. Everything. Nothing left. Down to the sheep that's over there in the corner, baaing away that never did anything wrong in his life. Destroy everything.
Without prejudice.
I'm going to wipe him out of the history. Everything. Wipe his name from the books. And Saul go down there and they go in there and they win it. I mean, Saul go down, he got what? Different around him and he's winning. He's getting the victory. God is giving him the victory that he has always wanted to make him that true. And what did Saul do? He said, you know what? These sheep are bad. These sheep are good. Now, I want to bring something to your attention. These women are good. These women are bad. Because remember, he's taking them. Now,
I say it's playing God, but go ahead.
yeah, he picking and choosing who he wants. Didn't he say that? The ones that were bad, I killed. The ones that I deemed were good, I kept. And Samuel comes down and Samuel's like, all right, well, let me see what happened. And all Samuel hears, And he walks up and Saul like, hey. He's like, hey, Samuel, my guy, welcome to the party. And Samuel like, wait a minute, you get too close to me. You got some stank on you. What you talking about? I did everything I was supposed to. He said, then what is this sheep I hear? Like you could, like I don't have to see your sin. I hear it. And Saul said, well, you know, I made it. Like I said, he said, I made the decision to keep some, get rid of some, keep some, get rid of some.
Be careful here.
Go ahead.
Look at verse 15, how
Okay.
Saul answers him.
Oh, wait. Oh, wait.
Okay,
I
okay.
said, I made the decision.
Okay.
He said, Samuel, I kept them to sacrifice to your God. It's a very, very, very
Your God?
yours? When did it split?
Mm.
Go ahead. What you got?
Well, he says that, but I'm looking at verse 15.
Okay.
And because Samuel said you did a wonderful job on the sheep. Okay. Huh? The beeping? Okay. But look at 15. It says, Saul said, they have brought them from imminent. Who's he telling who brought them? What it said? For the people spared the best of the sheep and the oxen to sacrifice the Lord of God, and the rest we have utterly destroyed. Saul said, the people brought them.
Oh, he the king.
But he tried to put it on the people.
That's what I'm saying.
But Samuel, but he bypassed all it.
No. Samuel knew better. You're right. But I'm just saying the way that Saul did that, right? Like, whoa. I mean, I might be king, but they didn't really do.
Samuel probably should have put in charge.
Well, look what he says. Then Samuel said to Saul, be quiet. Okay. And I will tell you what the Lord said to me last night. And he said to him, speak on. And that's when it comes into fruition.
Ooh. So
What? You looking at 17?
Yeah, I am.
Now we see. And Samuel was like, hey, I did what I was supposed to. No, you did. And on this day, God has to deal with you. You already tried it once. It's like, I gotta go because I need a day. And what does Samuel do?
What Samuel do?
Because what did Saul do? Samuel said, I gotta go and consult the Lord on this.
Wait, before you do.
No,
17, I
back.
just
Yeah,
wanna-
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just wanna-
17?
17, I got you because.
Yo, okay, gotcha.
You're there, Petey, but look at 17, what
It's
Samuel
a-
says to Saul, because it's true for all of us, and it's true for any person that God puts in a position. This is true, it's not just for Saul.
You got it? You want me to read it? You got it.
Saul didn't think he was worthy to be who he was, so that's what he's bringing back to him. So he became king.
Right.
Now, go ahead.
Oh, Saul or Samuel bring it back?
God is just gonna remind God through Samuel,
Yes.
is gonna remind Saul who Saul thought he was. Samuel said, it is not true. Is it not true? Though you were little in your own eyes, you were made the head of the tribes of Israel, and the Lord anointed you king over Israel. And the Lord sent you on a mission and said, go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are exterminated. Go ahead, Petey.
Consume.
Saul was saying here right quick from 1 Samuel 9:21. That's
Go ahead.
what Saul said, but we're gonna make it later. Saul replied, am I not a Benjamite of the smallest of the tribes
Yes.
of Israel? And my family the least of the families of the tribes of Benjamin? Why then did you speak to me this way? So that's what he was referring to when what Saul thought about himself. And he's reminding him that now you're a king, you do all this. Go ahead.
You think you're bigger than that?
There you go.
And as they get into it, now once again, I'm just telling the story here. So no, I got you. So as they're having this conversation, you know, he looks around. He said, "And you were told to do so." He said, "Well, I did this," and he says, "Obedience is better than sacrifice." That's 22.
That's 22. We look at 20 because again, Saul says this, right? He says to Samuel, "But I have obeyed the voice of the Lord and got all the mission on you which the Lord sent me and brought back Agar, king of Amalek. I have utterly destroyed the Amalekites next.
Yeah, we see.
We did what we said. You
No.
said, you told us to do.
No. They didn't. They didn't do anything.
But he said we did. We obeyed them.
He didn't. We know that he didn't. We know that he didn't. Because of what like everything he's saying to Samuel is just heaping,
Go ahead.
it's just heaping more on top of the coal. Hey, yeah. So Samuel's like, look, this ain't gonna work.
It's really Samuel's pulling the cover back, showing him the scene. He's trying to grow. Now, the statement obedience is better than sacrifice. It's always, you can take that all the way back to the garden. It'd been better had they obeyed, and a sacrifice would have never had to be given. The sacrifice does cover a multitude of sin, but it would have been better had they never sinned. Same way with us. I thought you was gonna hit the point here with us. You know, when we go and ask for forgiveness for our sins, or when they brought the lambs for their sins, it'd have been better had we never sinned than to sin and go ask for forgiveness. It'd be better had they never sinned than to sin and go give a sin offering. You know, and so that's what he's saying here. You know, you're trying to give an offering now, so the Lord for your sin. And if you just did like he would have said,
You wouldn't have
you would have never had to bring the sacrifice.
It would have never,
It's one thing for me to wrong you and come back and say, I'm sorry. But when I know I'm wronging you, and say, well, I just go back and say, I'm sorry. In your eyes or your heart, it'd been better had you accept it, but it'd been better had I never wronged you.
Now, I'm gonna tell you, you know, most people will see this and we understand that disobedience, the disobedience that Saul did has consequences, right? All right, so we know Samuel comes up, we tell him, hey, you were disobedient. Can't deal with you anymore. The kingdom is yours. And as he was walking away, he grabbed his end of the coat, pulled it, boom, little piece came off and said, just like that piece that's in your hand, so shall be the kingdom of Israel. So from that point on, Saul's job is done, but his damage went way further than Saul. This is why obedience is important. Can you go to First Chronicles 4:42 through 43? For 42 through 43, and it's really quick, short verse. Can I get a reader? I can read it now.
From them, from the sons of Simeon, 500 men went to Mount Seir with Pelatia, Neriah, Rephaiah, and Uziel.
He took a squad.
Saying,
I'm saying he took a squad.
the sons of Ishah as their leaders. They destroyed the remnant of the Amalekites who escaped and have lived there to this day.
So you see how far rippling disobedience goes, right? I didn't point that out to say the Amalekites was like to point out and say, well, you know, look how I point out to show that disobedience has a far ripple.
Or yes.
And when I say far ripple, what took place in the garden didn't get completed for some 1,000 years. Because disobedience has a far rippling effect. A lot of people only see it as, oh, you know, it was them and they took up that was a far rippling effect. To deal with the earth, to deal with the people, to deal with everything. Disobedience has such a far rippling effect that God tells everybody that it's better to obey than we have to sacrifice. Because look how much of the world has been sacrificed from that disobedience. Look how long Israel had the Amalekites there, to be thorn in their hip, even after, because Saul didn't totally annihilate them. It was something that had to be taken on later on by later kings and generations of suffering. So Saul says, hey, it's not yours anymore. Kingdom is gone. It's gone from you. And it's going to pass on to somebody far better than you. In fact, it's going to pass on to somebody who has the same heart as God. Good guy.
Let's show some wisdom here from Samuel's side. He was not distracted and he would not take no part nor have the appearance. It's important as leaders that you have the appearance that you are okay at any part of wrongdoing, especially when it comes to dealing with God's law. Go to verse 24, Samuel 15. I want to read down to probably 25, into 26.
Yeah.
Then Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned. I have indeed transgressed the commandments of the Lord. Now you see, a while ago, you see, he said the people did it, right? Now he's admitted, I have indeed transgressed the commandments of the Lord and your word because I fear the people and listen to their voice. Okay, see now, if God tells the king or the leader has no business listening to the people because see, God has put you in charge of the people. Okay, now watch this here. Now therefore, please pardon my sin. He's asking the wrong person, really. Please pardon my sin and return with me that I may worship the Lord. What Saul is trying to get Samuel to do is go out in front of the people to make the people think that Samuel is okay with what Saul did.
Right.
Samuel's smart in that. Go to verse 26. But Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being the king over Israel. You talked about the turn of it. In other words, I'm not going to go out there with you and appear that I'm in agreement with you in front of these people.
So Samuel actually did it like you got but he did it even better. So Samuel said, all right, after he told him that, Samuel said, you know what? Come on, Saul. Saul bowed to him and they went out. And now I want you to picture all of Israel's there. The king Agag is being brought out. And Saul thinks, man, Samuel came out here with me. Everything is going to be okay. And Samuel takes his sword and he chops Agag up into pieces. And he said, let your mother be bereaved like the mothers that you bereaved. Now he's talking about way back. Remember those people that were coming out when they were just, all of everything that was done over time is being poured out onto this one person because this ends the nation right here. Yeah. If Saul did what he was supposed to do, but he didn't. So chopping up a king, you still had women, sheep. You don't know who took who where, off to be tucked away. Israel, once again, is disobedient. So we see how this is a continuation of Israel's disobedience. Remember how we said, how was Israel disobedient? Was it because they was out there worshiping idols? Yeah, they could have been. We seen that. But it was simple stuff like this. It was stuff like that. It was a command given from God to go do this. And Israel said, well, you know what? Because who's really being led into disobedience? Saul. He's not leading his people. His people is telling him which direction to go in. Hey, Saul, you know, I know we're supposed to give here, but these sheep look good. Can I keep a couple? Samuel's not here. Sure, sounds like a great idea. Because if you notice, every time Samuel comes up, all the people have already done everything, and Saul is rightfully so, the king that was chosen, that was supposed to do the right thing, and it didn't. So now we see, he chops them up, and they don't see each other again until Saul's death. And Saul goes on. Now we can go to the next chapter, and then we'll end it because it's over. Whew. Yes.
Verse 30.
Mm-hmm.
When he said he had sinned, and then further down he said that I might worship the Lord your God.
Mm-hmm.
Why did he say your God?
Oh, he's been saying your God ever since Saul told him that.
You see shame?
Well, you have to think. And this is what I would say when it comes to Saul's mind state. For 1530. 1530 is where it starts. So he says your God quite a few times in it. And we look at the state of where Saul is now dealing with Samuel, and Samuel is saying, like, you're not connected like you should have been. In Saul's eyes, that means that I'm not serving God like you. So therefore, it's your God because you're being obedient. I'm not. We hear this a lot. Where what would you say, Pastor Ken? Men hate God and don't know it.
Romans chapter 1.
So Saul is admitting something that most people won't. When he knows that he fell off, and he's telling Samuel, right now, the Lord is not with me. He's with you. So that makes him your God. Go ahead.
And look at what he asked me, the back to what I just said in verse 30. Then he said, I've sinned, but please honor me now before the elders of my people and before Israel and go back with me. See, so he wants him to go out there to kind of lighten his situation. You know? So when he went out there, like Peter said, he just killed the egg.
And he's still not accountable. You still want to lessen the blow, not in front of God, in front of people.
Right,
You
now
wanna- you're still concerned, you just admitted I sinned against God, but now, hey, listen, do this at least so it's not too bad for people.
Oh,
Sin is bad.
and I say this, once again, I'm a little softer on Saul. Not soft on the sin, but soft on his position. Israel still is a nation with a king. If Samuel, even if Samuel goes out there and he chops up Haggai, Israel's still God's people. Saul is still God's people. He is still the leader of God's people. Even though he's disobedient, he's still in charge in his mind for what he's got to do. But Samuel's already got new marching orders. He's got new marching orders to the part where Saul doesn't even know he has new marching orders, but Saul knows what he told Samuel when he left. That Samuel knows what Saul, too many S's. They know what each other told each other. When
Samuel told Saul, it has been torn away from you.
It's already known. So guess what Saul now has? Oh, go ahead.
All right, well, here's the question. Was Saul saved
Yes.
or was he not saved?
Yes.
Okay, that's a question.
Reflection of his shame, his disobedience, his failure.
Remember you was talking about joy? Until you lose your joy?
Uh-huh.
Man,
Mhm.
okay, we're gonna see more of that here.
Oh, yeah, he
So
getting very angry.
you go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes. So that is it's like came and I was like, if I did something wrong, Mr. Leader, can you pray to God for me?
No.
Pray to your God for me. Even though we serve the same God, he's feeling the remorse. So you can see the remorse. It doesn't take away the sin. You can see that he's sorry. You can see a lot of things going on with Saul. And as Pastor Allen said, you're going to start to see even more things transpire with Saul as time goes on, as he starts to deteriorate from being a king to more being who he was. Now, so Saul decides he want to build himself a monument. I just want to put that out there in case you didn't read it. Saul built himself a monument. That was one of the things that when they was asking Gideon, right? And Gideon seen that thing and he said, Gideon chose to, you want to be a king, Gideon? We could build statues, monuments. And Gideon said, nah, I think I went far enough. And he turned around. But Saul didn't. Saul took it a step further to have monuments built towards him. Now, you might think statues, but some of those monuments back in the day, they could have been stones heaped together. It was just a representation that wherever you was at, you were in Saul's land. You were in Saul's land. Do you see the flaw of that? Because whose land is it? It's the promised land. It's the people's land. It's for the people. He told the people, when you go into this land, there's going to be milk and honey, fruit big as your head. And Saul said, no, I'm going to build monuments around here and say this is my land.
And all of that. Saul was influenced by his position as well. Saul is a king. And that has to work on your psyche as well. He was saved. You know what God's law is, yet he disobeyed.
And by the
sometimes the king, the earthly king, thinks he can do no wrong in his mind. He was a king and he was anointed, which made probably him more arrogant because he was an anointed king.
And a good looking guy who probably got told all the time he's a good looking guy. Saul had a lot of things that we as sometime on this side of the table looks and say, you know what, that looks good. That's a nice car, a nice house.
Yeah, I think opportunities get in the way sometimes. It's not that God will disobey you. Opportunities let us see who we are. I remember when my son was telling me they was in Iraq and they went to wherever Saddam's palace was. And they had coffins in the bottom. And he told me that they thought there was bodies in the coffin. When they opened the coffins up, there was American $100 bills, $1,000 bills. They told not to take the money. What do people do?
Take the money.
Opportunity. So for Saul, especially when he brought the sheep back, people, he saw opportunity. I'm not sure if God was in his mind and God told him not to do it. He just saw opportunity, you know, and though was still sin, he just saw opportunity and opportunity, he disobeyed. The lust of the eyes. pride of life,
He saw
pride of life.
temptation brought about the
He
rest.
saw opportunity.
Much as desire.
He seen what he seen and he took advantage of it. But now we see a transition, and we'll probably wrap it up a little bit before we even get to before we dig into it any further. But we can get a little, what is it, preface. So we see now Saul is sulking. Saul is sulking because at the end of the day, Samuel is sulking because Samuel liked Saul.
Oh, yes, he did.
He really liked him. He had high hopes for him, especially you going from the judge, you're old, your kids is messing up. You're like, this is it. This is where I find my rest. Because remember, we're gonna learn a couple things later on too. What is rest? What is considered rest in God's eyes? It tells us. I had to go look for it. But Samuel right now is feeling like, man, God, you know, he's wrestling with it. Dude, he's wrestling. He is wrestling with a decision that has already been made. To a point where God said, how long are you gonna do this? Get up and go do what I told you to do. And Samuel actually lets a little fear get in the way. And he says, well, what if Saul tried to kill me on the way up out of here? He said, don't worry about it. Take some.
He's killed priests before.
Many of them. Won't be the first and won't be the last. So Saul is telling him who he's going to go look for. And we'll kind of end it here. If you go down to 7, chapter 7, prior to that,
verse 7.
Verse 7, chapter 16, verse 7. So prior to that, Samuel was like, hey, I need to devise a plan to get out there. Now, I was reading, I was like, why won't God just strike it down a bolt of lightning and takes off? It's all a plan. It's a plan because we still need a king. God's setting up his forever kingdom, and it's coming. It's coming. Like, it's all right here. It's all being set up retrograde and forward. Now, when he tells him to go and pick this new king, he tells me he's going to have a heart after my own. Now, as I was studying that, and I was like, well, what's a heart? What's a heart after your own? It sent me into all different types of ways, how they used to look at the heart, the mind, and it made me think of like who David was. Not that I'll ever understand the mind of God, but he gave me an understanding of who David was, where I can look at him and say, this is something I can take as an example. All right, so we'll get into the intro, how they got to David, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about the heart that David had, because it's important to know the heart that he had, because when it comes in later on, you hear it, but you might miss it. So David had the type of heart, the one, obedient. He served his father as a sheep keeper. His brothers were David was aged to go off to war, but his brothers went and David stayed. David had 7 brothers. I'm trying to count them all.
Yes.
Yes. So he had a lot.
7.
He had a lot. He had quite a few. I don't have a number on my head. So David had a lot of brothers. But out of all his brothers, he stayed back and tended to his father's business. Sound very familiar. I'm here to do my father's business. David also had a heart of courageousness. And when I say heart, I'm not talking about this thing that beat in your chest. He had a heart or mind, as they studied in those days, or it was in those days, of courageousness. He fought a lion and a bear. When I read it before, I thought he fought a lion and then later on fought a bear. But if you read it, it actually say he fought a lion and a bear. And it made me think, was he fighting them simultaneously? So this means that whether he was fighting them simultaneously or individually, we know that David has a heart to go after his father's sheep. Not just say, oh, you know, I'm tending my father's sheep, one got away. He has the heart to go after his father's sheep. Sounds very familiar, right? So we see this type of heart that David has. A heart like our father, one who will never leave his sheep abandoned, and 2, will fight anything to protect us. I mean, David was a kid fighting a lion and a bear. So I want you to understand when this is shaping up to the type of heart that he's talking about. All of it is really saying is David has an obedient heart unto death. Meaning whatever's in front of him, if it's in the way of God, he is going to trust God that it will be annihilated. And we see that coming up here shortly. I'm gonna go ahead and put a pin in it right there. Any questions? I know I'll be rolling fast. I'll try to slow down a little bit more, but it's such an interesting story and so many parts. Anything I leave out? Anything I want to go back and touch on? Questions, comments? Don't make this too easy. Everybody read ahead, man. I'm gonna take everybody books so I can. Thank you all so much for letting me share.